My name is Morris Taylor. I'm a Baha'i. I live in northern Illinois in Round Lake Heights, Illinois. And I work as a corporate skills trainer. I work with businesses and also with administrative staff of colleges and universities in people skills. My focus is on leadership and communication skills, how to be better leaders, more effective leaders, and how to get the most out of your people.
Okay.
There's clearly a power in goal setting. And there have been just a number of statistical studies that have been done that show the difference between people who have goals and people who don't have goals. On a very simplistic level, if you think about a CEO of a company, and you say to this guy, you know what, I'm curious, how did you get to be CEO? What do you think he'd say? I think he'd say, well, I just showed up for work one day and they started promoting me and here I am, CEO, Or you say, Sir Edmund Hillary, first man to climb Mount Everest, how did you do it? What do you think he'd say? You think he'd say, well, I was just out walking around and found myself at the top of this big old hill and here I am, top of Mount Everest. He wouldn't say that. These people had goals, they had a vision. And that's what we need to understand, that people who have specific visions, that they have put them down on paper, which is really clear, and then put together a process for achieving those goals, they do great things. There was a study done in 1979, and they interviewed a large group of Harvard MBA graduates. They were just about to graduate. And they asked the group how many of them had goals that were written down, goals for their career after they get their MBAs. Of the people that they interviewed, only 3% of them had written goals.
Wow.
Another 13% had goals but hadn't written them down. And then the remaining 84% didn't have any goals. So that was surprising. They came back 10 years later and interviewed that same group. The 13% that had goals that were not written down were literally making twice as much money annually as the 84% that didn't write anything down. But it gets better. The 3% that had actual goals that were written down were literally making, get this, 10 times the salary of the other 97%. And they've repeated that same experiment in these studies over and over again with the same results. It makes a difference not only to have goals, but to write them down. So the first step is to understand that there's real value there, there's real power there in having goals. And the second thing is to give them a level of specificity so that the subconscious mind starts to send messages to the conscious mind and the body, and they will follow the pathways that the subconscious lays down for it. So I know that sounds like a lot of psychobabble, but there are specific things that we can point out to people to show them how this works. The subconscious mind cannot process a negative command. So for example, we teach courses on public speaking. And sometimes people have what we call stage fright, or they're nervous to get in front of a group. Sure. And so as they're getting ready to go up on the stage, they're sitting there telling themselves, okay, don't be nervous, don't be nervous, don't be nervous. See, that's a problem. Because the subconscious mind can't process that. See, when the subconscious mind hears don't be nervous, it says, okay, don't be nervous. What do you want me to do? And it waits. And they go, excuse me, you said don't be nervous. What do you want me to do? And in the absence of that positive command, they will latch on to the only action verb you gave it, which was be nervous. Now, if you don't think that's true, you can do a little experiment. What you can do is like start to jog down a flight of steps and tell yourself, don't trip, don't trip, don't trip. You better have your hand close to the rail. Because your feet are going to start to falter, okay? So instead, we tell people, if they're nervous, we tell them like on the notes that they take with them, maybe in big bold letters at the top of each sheet, write the word smile. Or say good eye contact. Or say good posture. Give the subconscious something specific and positive to do. So in the same way, when we set goals, too often people will set a goal like, well, this year I don't want to be broke. Okay, it's a nice idea, but what do you want? If you don't tell the subconscious what you really want, what are you going to focus on? Being broke. It's as if I tell you, your goal is don't think of a pink elephant.
You think of a pink elephant?
You can't help it because you can't think not to do that without thinking about it. So you always, when you set up your goals, one of the things that helps to train the subconscious mind is to be sure you put it in a positive way. You state the goal in the way that specifies what you want, not what you don't want. So that's an example of how you can start to feed the subconscious mind. But as I was talking about before, what you want is a certain level of specificity. And we have found that the more specific people are with their goals, the more likely they are to actually pursue them and achieve them. So I'll give you a real quick formula that people can use. And we've all heard this before. They say your goals should be SMART. Okay, SMART is an acronym, S-M-A-R-T. And it stands for the way you want to create and formalize your goals. So for example, first of all, it should be specific. You want to avoid words like good or better or more. Because see, I think of those like weasel words. You can always get around that. So you say, well, I want to exercise more. Well, see, I can get up every morning and do this. Okay, that's more. See, so you know, if you say to your buddy, you know, well, for my birthday, I like a nice watch. Your idea of what a nice watch is could be very different from your friend's idea. So you want to be real specific. I want it to be analog. I want it to have an alarm. I want it to have a dual time zone. I want it to make yogurt. Whatever you want to do, you got to be real specific. And then you'll get the watch that you want. So you want to be real specific. So your goal might be to start exercising. It's very general. But if you say, my goal is to join a health club and to go there to work out at least 3 days a week for an hour. You see the level of specificity? See, it's a big difference. Just start exercising. You could do anything and say, well, that goal didn't work. Well, what were you doing? Well, what did you call exercising? So I'm real specific. So first, be specific. Secondly, you want to make it measurable. That's the M in SMART. And usually when you make it measurable, you either want to state it either in quantity or quality. So for example, go back to getting in shape. You can say, okay, I want to get in shape. That's my goal. Well, like a friend of mine says, round is a shape. All right? So what do you mean by getting in shape? So you want to be real specific. Well, I mean in good shape. What if you said, I want to be able to run a marathon in less than 4 hours? Do you see how that would shape the kind of exercise you do? Or I want to be able to bench press my own weight 12 times. Or I want to wear the same pants I wore when I was in college. And that's the difference. See, that's real specific, and it's actually going to define the kind of exercise you do. So that as you're going along, let's say you want to run the marathon in less than 4 hours, and you're doing a lot of weightlifting. You start timing yourself, well, I'm not getting any better. Was he doing a different kind of exercise? So you got to fit the exercise, the activity, to meet the goal. So it's one kind of activity for running the marathon, another kind for running, another kind for getting in shape for your clothes. So make it measurable. The third one, the A, you want to be acceptable. And by acceptable, what that means is it should be acceptable to you. Too often, we set goals because somebody else wants us to do it. Too often, we go to college because our parents want us to go, or because our friends went. Too often, we try to quit smoking because the doctor says you got to quit smoking. Or we want to go on a diet because our spouse says I should lose some weight. If it isn't something you want to do that you feel good about, the chances of you doing it and sticking with it are not nearly as good. Now, granted, if your spouse says, I want you to lose weight, and you really love your spouse, and you don't care about losing weight, but you care about pleasing your partner, then that might be enough to get you to do it. But on either level, you have to want to do it, so it should be acceptable. The R is for realistic. It's got to be something that not only are you willing to do, but you have the necessary resources to do it. So for example, let's say I'm 60 years old, and my goal is to become a Chicago cop. Okay, is it specific? Measurable? Yeah. Acceptable? I want to do it. Realistic? Last time I checked, they're not taking 60-year-old men to become cops.
Right.
So I don't have the resource, which in this case is age. So it's not realistic. Another way to think about realism is, let's say your goal is to read 24 books this year, right? So I say, Zina, how many books you read last year? Well, I got halfway through Harry Potter. What are the chances of Zina reading 24 books? That's 23 and a half more books, Zina. So is that realistic? So you want to also base it on what you've done in the past, because the best predictor of future performance is past performance. So I might say, you know what, Zina, let's talk a little bit. Why don't we go for like one book every 2 months, which would give you 6 books over the year. Now that would be a jump. That would be a 600% increase. More than that if you only read half a book, right? But that would be a good target for you. But otherwise, 24 books, you're probably setting yourself up to fail. So it should be realistic. Finally, the T is it needs to be time specific and towards what you want. By time specific, we mean, well, someone once said, a goal is a dream with a deadline. Okay? So you need a specific time. You say, I'm going to start by this date. I'm going to get it by this date. There's something about setting deadlines that kicks the body into gear. I mean, if you know that paper is due tomorrow morning, it's amazing how much work you get done tonight. It's just, whereas if it's due next month, you're like, you know. Okay, so a deadline. And then towards what you want, we kind of talked about that earlier, you want to put it in positive terms, not what you don't want, but you want to state it in the way you do want it. So again, specific, measurable, acceptable, realistic, and time-specific, and towards what you want. That creates a SMART goal. And people we have found who have SMART goals are much more likely to be successful, are much more likely to continue to pursue them, to be motivated, to get out there and do it, and to actually achieve them.